What's up everybody, and welcome back to pre-production for the modern guitarist. And this video is going to be on the mastering phase, which means that this is going to be the last video of pre-production for the modern guitarist. But it's alright. Yeah, so I'm not a mastering guy by any means, but I mean, this whole thing is just to show you guys how I approach mastering as of now. You know, I'm always still trying to learn, so should you be. So, let's go ahead and get into it. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and bypass all of my plugins on my master bus, mix bus, 2-bus. There's different names for it, you know, whatever you want to call it. So this is something I learned from Nolly's Creative Live, and one of the things that he was talking about is before he even starts mixing, is he actually uses a sort of, I guess it's like a top-down mixing method where before he actually starts mixing all of his stuff, he throws an EQ on his mix bus that is already kind of set up for like a high shelf, a low shelf, you know, a little bit of a high pass, a little bump in the 60-ish hertz range. This isn't exactly the way he did it. I just sort of messed around with it too. But by doing sort of like a pre-EQ before you actually start mixing, might influence some of your mixing changes. Instead of, you know, let's say your mix is already sounding kind of dark, by doing this, it kind of brightens it already, gets it to more of a point where it's sounding a little bit better to the ears, and then from there you don't maybe have to do as much EQ or as much brightening of all your instruments up. So that's what I think is pretty cool about it. So let's go ahead and I'm going to turn this on, and then I'm going to bypass it on and off so you can kind of hear what it sounds like. So you see, just by having that, it already starts to make it sound pretty good. So we have that, and then this is our Ssl Buss Compressor. I would normally start mixing with this right away. I would have this turned off if I was actually tracking, but for mixing, you're gonna use a bus compressor. So I would suggest just mixing into it already, because there's no point in doing your whole mix and then throwing a compressor on your mix bus, because then levels are going to change. What I usually do, I mean, these are pretty typical settings. I'm not really crushing my mix with this. What I'm doing is I have the slowest attack, a fast release, about a 4:1 ratio, and then what I do is, as I'm listening to it, I'll take the threshold and just start turning it up to where I'm just seeing about maybe 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction, and so let's try that out. So right here we have nothing's happening right now because our threshold's not even climbed yet. So you can hear if you went too far. Like, see how I started cranking it even more, and then you start hearing like it's swallowing the mix. So you just use your ears when it comes to this. Like, don't just look at the needle and try to get it, you know, if it starts sounding like it's going too far, it probably is. Then just kind of dial it back a little bit, and you'll find the right point for it. But generally, slow attack, fast release, 4:1 ratio, and then just set the threshold accordingly. Then we have a Cramer Tape plugin. I wanted to experiment with this because I've seen a lot of people doing stuff with like tape saturation and tape emulation stuff, and I actually like the way it sounded. And this is the Waves one, and let's go ahead and so we'll go ahead and play it and hear how this sounds. Yeah, there's some different settings on here. There's like a low pass, feedback delay, noise, flutter. I don't really tweak this too much. I think the only thing I did was I set the bias to over and the speed to 15. That's pretty much it. You know, you can dial the flux in if you want to get a little more grit out of it. And then I have a Q10, which is basically doing a little bit more subtractive EQ. I'm not boosting. The only boosting I did was in my first, the FabFilter Q2. So here, basically taking out some of those whistly frequencies again, a little bit of a high pass. Did a little bit of notching out in the low mids. But right here, so as far as some of the cuts that I did, I actually took out some 4K again, and a little bit of 2.4K. And these were just some frequencies that I was starting to hear. Like, always keep your ear out for when you're listening to this stuff, and it'll start to pop out to you over time. I'm still trying to get better at this kind of stuff. But it's just some little extra noise frequencies that start to build up over the course of all the instruments. So this kind of just clears a little more space, and it's a little bit more easier on the ears. So we'll go ahead and turn this on, and then I'll bypass it and turn it on and off. So you can hear how that actually makes a big difference. As small as these notches look, they're effective. Alright, yeah, so pretty much after that, we're just going to be getting into the limiting portion of mastering, and this is pretty much taking your mix and making it louder. So another little note too, when you're actually mixing, you want to keep enough headroom. I've talked about this before. You want to keep enough headroom in your mix so that way by the time you get to this phase, you have room to crank it up with the limiters. Because if you have no headroom and you start trying to slam it with limiters, it's going to sound horrible. So yeah, make sure you keep an eye on that because it can get crazy. Alright, so the cool trick about having multiple limiters is that you don't have to just completely slam one of them. So what I do is I just have two of them, and they're both kind of sharing the weight a little bit. So here, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn this one off. So this is just going to be the first limiter, and this one is getting hit a little bit harder than the second one. The second one's just to kind of, you know, give it a little more volume, a little more push. So let's go ahead and hear how it sounds with this. I'll go ahead and bypass it and then turn it on so you can hear what it does. Alright, so yeah, you'll notice that what it does is it really brings some life to your mix and makes it a little bit louder because everyone likes things loud. And what I'm doing here is for the mode I'm using the IRC2, which I actually got that from Joey Sturgis on his Creative Live. He seemed to favor that one, so I tried it out and I think it sounds good. Margin, I usually have about a negative 0.3. For the character, I have it around, probably set this to probably just 1. And basically you want it working fast. I mean, for this kind of stuff, you want the limiter really in gear. So, and then what I do is I'll just start bringing down the threshold until I, start to hear the level that I want. But like I said, I'm not trying to crank this. So here, let's just go ahead and hear how this sounds. Yeah, so you can see as I start bringing down that threshold, the volume gets louder because now you're starting to really clamp on those transients, and by doing that, you're jacking up the volume. So yeah, now that's our first limiter. Now let's go ahead and open up the next one. And then I'm gonna turn this off, and then I'm gonna turn it on so you can see what it does. Now you can see how, here, I'm gonna go ahead and change this. Pretty much same mode. Same everything, except when I set up the next one, I actually just started just bringing down the threshold until I got a little more volume out of it. So let's just go ahead. So I have this on negative 3.5. Let's just go ahead and bring this flat. And then I'll turn this on, and then I'll just start bringing down the threshold and getting a little more volume out of it. if you start going any louder, you're basically just gonna like ridiculously distort your mix. So that's pretty much how I went about mastering for this mix. Like I said, I'm not a mastering guy. I don't claim this to be the right or the wrong way. This is just me kind of experimenting with stuff that I've been learning over time, and always trying to get better, just as you guys should be. And you know, hope for all you people that have watched it, you got something out of it. I had a lot of fun making these videos, as you know, the whole point is because I want to help people and you know, help you guys get to the point with your mixes that you want quicker. So don't let this be the end of it. You know, right after this video, go on YouTube, and if there's any terms of anything that I use, look them up. You know, like limiters, like what exactly does a limiter do? You know, do the research. I don't want to just, you know, make these videos too crazy about going in depth of everything. You know, if there's stuff you want to learn a little more in detail, just go ahead and you know, start Googling it, start YouTubing it. So if there's anything you guys would like to see in future videos regarding recording, mixing, or mastering, just go ahead and shoot them in the comments, and I'll try to get those made. And until then, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.